we're here in Manhattan, obviously, and Manhattan is, in our minds anyway, partly Woody Allen's Manhattan. It may be a bit of Martin Scorsese's Manhattan as well, but our ideas of Manhattan are very much formed, I think, by your films. If you look at that decade, which begins with Bananas and ends with Manhattan itself, the 70s, some people think of that as a kind of golden age of filmmaking, and I wondered whether you did.
I've heard that. I've heard that people think when they were doing, it's when America went away from star-dominated films and went to director-dominated films for a while. But after a brief, I don't know, a decade or a certain amount of time, the film studios learned, to our dismay, but to their pleasure, that if they spent $200 million making a film, they could make $500 million on it. So they were not interested anymore in quality films that would give them a profit of $10-20 million, or $30 million. That didn't mean anything to them. I mean, that was small potatoes. They want to take big risks and make big money. You know, I may take the money and run for $1 million. Now it's, I don't know, 40 years later or whatever, and I made Midnight in Paris for $17 million. This is nothing. The average silly film that comes out of Hollywood is $40 million. And it's not uncommon to have $75 million, $80 million films, $200 million films. You know, that's, so you'll never get the consistent adventure and quality that you got in an era where the films were made for much less money because the risks were so much lower and people took them. They can't afford to be that risky at those prices. And consequently, you're getting, you know, you get a lot of remakes, sequels, dopey comedies full of toilet jokes. And, I mean, you know, that's what you get because that they feel is the lowest common denominator and they can protect their investment. You know, when you see a young kid trying to get his film made, it's brutal. I mean, you know, sure, finally, after years, they scratch out a little money and they throw together some student-looking jerry-built thing that plays at Sundance or something, but it shouldn't be that hard for them. They should be able to get quality production and backing and opportunities, and we would all be richer for it in terms of our culture. But they don't. It's such a struggle for young people to get their films made at all.
And it wasn't a struggle in the late 60s, early 70s to get films made?
It was a struggle, but it wasn't such a struggle because when I wanted to Take the Money and Run, I needed $1 million. Now, $1 million was a lot of money then, but not a catastrophic amount of money. I mean, you know, it wasn't that much money, and I was making all my first films, Sleeper and Bananas, Everything You Always Want to Know About Sex, Love and Death. I was making them for $2 million a film. And so if the film was a disaster, nobody lost much money. There wasn't, so there was more opportunity. It wasn't such a struggle. Look, if a guy like me, I was a nightclub comic who had no knowledge of filmmaking, had a few months of film course at college and was thrown out having failed my major. If I could get a chance to make a film, then a lot of people got chances. I mean, you know, Cassavetes got chances and Scorsese got chances. You know, these people all got chances to make films. Now, it's not so easy.
I do not flirt.
Don't tell me you don't flirt, because I've seen you do it at parties. You put on a whole other personality.
Oh, you're crazy.
Of course you do. You get all soulful and pretend to want things that you really can't stand.
Like what? What are you talking
Like moving
about?
to Europe. That's just a flirting technique. You couldn't survive off the island of Manhattan for more than 48 hours.
Let me tell you, you're the one that misrepresented herself when we got married.
What do you
I've
mean
been
by
honest
that?
all
Like
along.
what?
Like what? Like you had one child and then, you know, you didn't want any more? That was
the way
plenty?
I felt then. People change. I'm not the same person I was all those years ago.
Well, that's why relationships go sour.
yeah, you hate change.
Sure, I hate change equals death.
Maybe you fool your 20-year-old students into thinking that's some kind of an insight or something, but it means nothing. Change is what life is made of. Change, if you don't change, you don't grow. You just shrivel up.
There's something that one of your characters says in Husbands and Wives, your character says in Husbands and Wives, when he says, change is death. And I wondered whether you still thought that.
Well, I mean, I think that's obvious. Change is, you know, you're moving forward. You don't want that. You want things to stay the same. But things don't stay the same. The molecules in the body get older, and if you could arrive at a certain time in your life where you've got everything where you want it, and you could lock it in and say, this is it, I think people would do that. But they can't, because you say, well, this time next year, who knows what's going to happen with the world, or with you, or your loved ones, or your opportunities, or anything. You suddenly find that you have arthritis in your hand, and your film hasn't gone well, and things have happened. They've blown up the World Trade Center, and, but once you've got it where you want it, then change becomes the enemy. And, change for the worse is so much more meaningful than change for the better. The bad stuff takes its toll on you in such a disproportionate way to the good stuff. The bad stuff knocks you for a loop that you sometimes never recover from. It's not fair, and it's terrible. And you heard that from me.
It's a terrible note on which to end. Woody Allen, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.